Now, I am thrilled to introduce our keynote speaker, Ms. Suzanne Ackerman-Berman, the Transformation Director, Chairman, Social and Ethics Committee, and Ackerman Pick and Pay Foundation, Chairman of that foundation, an author and a phenomenal businesswoman with a social cause. Suzanne graduated from the University of Cape Town with a BA in French and Politics. She settled in France, ran her own business in restaurants and nightclubs in a French ski resort for 7 years. Then, deciding that was not fun enough, Suzanne returned to South Africa and joined the family supermarket business. During her 20 years with Pick and Pay, Ms. Ackerman-Berman has worked in various positions from floor management, buying to general manager of corporate affairs and social responsibility. In 2007, she founded the small business incubator that seeks to address the social and economic inequalities of the past created by the apartheid era by providing access to the formal market for small and previously disadvantaged entrepreneurs. A passionate proponent for equality, job creation, and skills development, Suzanne assists many new entrepreneurs in all aspects of business and life skills through a detailed mentorship program that ensures their sustainability as suppliers to the broader economy. It's my honor and immense privilege to welcome Ms. Suzanne Ackerman-Berman to the podium.
Wow. I'm not sure you were talking about me there, Dean. But good morning, everybody. What an incredible privilege to be standing here. Chancellor Haddon, Madam Mayor, Dean, to all the other dignitaries here, and to these incredible students. I think they need another round of applause. Well done. But I want to just congratulate the parents and families, because I'm one of them. And I'm sorry to say, there's a lethal combination here, so forgive me. A graduation ceremony, a daughter, and a microphone. That's all I can say. But I just want to, on behalf of my mother, my brother and sister, and my nephew sitting here today, to thank you for this incredible honor bestowed on my father. It's just, there are actually no words, not even in the dictionary or in Google, but there is one expression which I find from my late grandmother. It's called climbing nachas. Now that means filling yourself with pride at the achievement of those you love. And I can just feel the sense of pride that all of you, family and friends, have for these incredible ladies and gents sitting here in scarlet. So Dad, we are incredibly proud of you. But when I was reading this wonderful commencement brochure, that document you all have, I don't think it's an act of coincidence. The fact that the graduation ceremony last night dealt with the nursing staff, with the professional caregivers, in other words, the people who look after the compassion in our society. And then this morning, it's followed by us, the business people. So, Chancellor, I'm not sure if there was some kind of deep psychological link there. There was. Okay, you can claim that. Well done. Because that's exactly what I want to talk about today. Thank you, Rutgers, for acknowledging not only the role that we, my parents, have played in transforming South African society, but quite honestly, recognizing the contribution that business plays towards society outside the United States. We hear a great deal nowadays about these big words, globalization, leadership. What is it? I don't want to waste your time, because I know the last thing you remember at a graduation ceremony is the speech by the keynote speaker. So I've had the privilege over the last 6 or 8 years, of meeting quite a few of you, and I think it's over about 100 of you have come through our Pick and Pay boardroom doors, and just you have changed my lives. You really have. You've given me hope that there is a next generation who deeply feels concerned for society. And I thank you for changing my mind about students, about this country, and about where we are going as a future in humanity. So my focus today is on two types of leadership: a builder of walls or a builder of bridges. And coming from the African continent, I'm often asked, okay, so who are your great leaders? I think we'll leave it there because unfortunately, and I can see there are quite a few fellow Africans in the audience, my family included, it's a very difficult question. How do I answer who are our great leaders? But sometimes I'm very tempted to say, sure, there is one original, amazing, thoughtful political leader from Africa, and his name, Barack Obama. But I continue searching for this new wave of leadership. And I'm appealing to you, to all of you sitting in these first 10 rows, break the mold. Stop listening to people like us. Stop listening to our politicians. Find a new realm of leadership where leadership is not restricted to the political arena. And often we get bogged down by that. How can we possibly look up to and revere leaders who focus their energies and passionate discord on building walls? Sadly, this is a common theme right here in the United States, on the East European continent, in Asia, and of course, we are masters of it coming from Africa. Building walls, dividing society are common themes that none of us can escape. The physical walls of apartheid might have been torn down in South Africa, and it was a society built on deeply racial grounds, much like your society here in the early 50s and 60s. The damage will take generations to repair. The emotional scars run very, very deep. But the builders of bridges, on the other hand, the positive ones, like my father, trying to develop connections, links between people of different backgrounds, to create bonds that look past the surface differences of color, race, language, ethnicity, gender, religion. And here, as a South African, I'm deeply proud to be part of this legacy of bridge builders. We have the great Nelson Mandela, and my father, way before Mandela became a figurehead in South Africa, dedicated his life and my mother's life to building bridges and repairing our society. So I want to focus a moment on the African bridge builders, some incredible writers whose influence and ideas go well beyond their borders. The Nigerian Chinua Achebe, best known for his incredible novel, Things Fall Apart, and his fellow countryman, a poet, a playwright, and a Nobel Prize winner, Wole Soyinka, were outspoken proponents of freedom of expression. They paid the ultimate price between them: imprisonment, solitary confinement, finally exile. And together with the incredible Kenyan academic, who I know is a lecturer here at one of the Ivy League universities, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, who was forced to flee to the United States, all of them had in common the ability to speak truth to power in their own countries. And yet, all three of them will doubtless be remembered as great builders, connecting bridges in their own countries long after the builders of those walls have finished. Those politicians who persecuted have been forgotten. In another of Chinua Achebe's novels, The Anthills of the Savannah, he said, storytellers are a threat. They threaten all champions of control. They frighten the usurpers of the right to freedom of the human spirit, in states, in church or mosque, in party congress, in university, or wherever. The list of notable heroes is endless. And many of you today are going to become those new heroes. Many of you will become the unsung heroes of society, the bridge builders of the future. Look within your own communities, set an example. For us from Africa, all over Africa, in every village, you'll find an amazing, strong woman. A woman who has taken the children, the orphans, the poverty, the hunger as her sole responsibility and passes on to generations. Those are the builders of bridges. Footballers like Yaya Toure and Didier Drogba from the Ivory Coast, two of the greatest soccer players in the world. I'm not sure if their names are as big here as David Beckham, but if you look at the Twitter account and you see the followers that David Beckham has, it's extraordinary, 67 million followers, compared to Barack Obama's 7.2. I ask you, who are the leaders and the role models of society? But these guys, these football players, these role models, they're not great because they're sportsmen. They are great sportsmen. But because they are role models, they stand out there and they give people, children, hope. Their influence has been recognized now globally as both of them, Toure and Drogba, are United Nations Goodwill Ambassadors. They are notable bridge builders. All of us probably know heroes in our own communities. Sometimes it is all the more astonishing to identify these builders because of the conditions built in considerable adversity. Nurses, doctors, scientists, and even accountants. We need to, as humanity, find our voice to challenge leadership. Speak out against equality whenever you see it or are confronted by it. Discrimination in any shape or form, stop it. Forbid the builders of walls to dominate. Those are leaders who play on fear, a classic recipe for clinging to disaster and to power. Instead, speak out. Become builders of bridges. They are just the ones based on prejudice, tribal customs, race, gender, sexual preference, or religion. These invisible fences are destructive. They are built on stereotypes, on xenophobia and prejudice. For the past 49 years, my parents fought to build an ethical company against an unethical society. Driven by a profound set of values, they believe that doing business, particularly in Africa, is not just about business, doing business and business alone, as you heard from my father. It's about addressing the complex societal needs in a creative and productive manner, whilst addressing inequalities of the past. Pick and Pay, as you may have heard, has now grown to over 1,100 stores in 8 countries in sub-Saharan Africa, providing employment for over 80,000 people. As a corporation, we've always believed that we should never take out more than we put in. The concept of the more you give, the more you receive. Every religion that we all follow teaches that. Why not business? And I speak now to the professors, the business professors behind me. But the concept of doing good is good business is more valuable now than ever before. And what's interesting is communities that have the least have the greatest sense of unity and respond best to what we have to give them, particularly in Africa. We all know the incredible challenges in our environment. We probably have the most diverse consumer base on this planet. But with those challenges comes a deep obligation to address the world in crisis: health, poverty, hunger, dwindling natural resources. We all need to find a solution to these problems. We can't sit back and wait for somebody else to do it. And one of the areas that, as you heard, that I'm passionate about is building entrepreneurs. The formal supply chain should not and need not be for the exclusive use of the big players, the multi-corporates, multinationals. Share your knowledge, provide mentorship, and that's my plea to all of you sitting here. You have learned a skill. You have been given a phenomenal gift by your parents, your loved ones, the sacrifices that they've all made to get you to this point today. Pay it forward. Share it with someone else. Those of you, and I know there are many who come from Africa, Go back home, and my dad mentioned Anthony, and I promised I would meet Anthony's parents. Go back to the country that you came from. Find a person to share your knowledge, give back. Go back to your village, your community, even if it's just down the road. Share the knowledge. And I appeal to large multinationals, and hopefully there's some of them represented here. They can find me afterwards if they need to. I've got a big brother to protect me. Let's look together at really changing the way we do business across the globe. We may all be fighting in the same retail global space, but we mustn't forget where we all come from as individuals, communities, and the many millions of us who were immigrants at some time in our lives in our past, fleeing the scourges of war, corruption, and discrimination. But again, I can only speak of Africa, the continent that grew and developed us, the world's second most populous continent, where by 2050 it's predicted that 25% of the world's population will be living there, and 910 million of those people will be under 18 years old. These are frightening numbers, but as commerce students, look at the opportunity. Phenomenal. Africa needs us, our expertise, our mentorship. Africa and the developing nations need greater distribution of resources, greater access to skills, greater access to better farming practices, greater protection of natural resources, better solutions to healthcare. And most importantly, Africa needs a more creative mechanism to alleviating poverty and hunger. Each one of us here, and I mean it, each including myself, holds a key to unlocking potential somewhere else, be it in a student, be it in a nephew, a niece, a child, a grandparent. Become that mentor. Share it. And as our great Nelson Mandela said, sometimes it falls on a generation to be great. We can be that great generation. I know I sound like an idealist. My family often criticize me for being one. But I don't care. I believe it can happen. I believe there is a better world out there for all of us. Bring your education, your knowledge, pay it forward. And business has to understand and appreciate that we have an obligation to address inequalities in any shape or form. More directly, as we are constantly trying to do in South Africa, assisting previously disadvantaged with access to the formal economy, we're growing and developing, as you heard from Dean Ganesh, we develop small farmers and entrepreneurs, and we help them, as this is the key to economic freedom, to providing jobs, to providing employment. But we need to do this around the world in all developing nations. It's stories about turning a woodcutter into a major charcoal supplier. A community seamstress has become one of the suppliers of our corporate uniforms for our entire company. A farmer's wife has become a biscuit manufacturer, and a mushroom farm worker in South Africa has been turned into the CEO of a multi-million-dollar facility providing mushrooms to the entire country. And this happened by his passion, his commitment, his integrity, and most importantly, humility and willingness to learn. But the exposure to opportunities can be summed up in a beautiful, simple words of a young Zimbabwean farmer I know very well. He came to South Africa to seek better opportunities for himself and his family, and who said to me the other day after he received his payment, "My pocket is heavy, and my heart is so full of all I have learnt." We all have the opportunity now to build a better society, one we are proud to live in, with equality and freedom for all. It has been said many times that we all stand on the shoulders of those who came before us, the pioneers of this very country, founders, entrepreneurs of some of the greatest economies of the world, were great risk takers. And all I ask is that those of us who are graduating and becoming contributing members to the economy and society in one way or another. Just look for ways to reach out and do what is right. Your parents all taught you what is the difference between right and wrong. Nothing has changed. It was mentioned here earlier. Do what is right. Follow your heart. Build those bridges. So, as a fourth-generation South African, I'm really proud to stand here today with a mandate handed down to me and to my siblings from generations, a legacy that I hope to continue, that being to continue building these bridges, reaching out to all nationalities, addressing students, like-minded people from the 7 continents of this globe, encouraging individuality, passion, and helping others find their purpose in life. In South Africa, we had no Berlin Wall that we could physically tear down when the end of our tyranny finally came. Those walls and fences that had been built during the nearly half-century of apartheid were deeply psychological, based on fear, propaganda, and naked racial prejudice. It's a history you and I share. But as these scars run deeper and deeper, it is the time now to put an end to it and stop it. You may recall that at the funeral service for Nelson Mandela in Johannesburg 3 years ago, attended by many international statesmen as well as our own leading politicians, if I may call them that, the loudest and warmest applause was for the memorial speech by your president. Why was this? I honestly think it's because whatever your own views are here domestically in the United States, in Africa, Mr. Obama is seen in this age of dizzying and often confusing globalization not as a constructor of dividing walls, but as a builder of connecting bridges. So, I know he was only here a few days ago. He just came to warm up the stage for me coming here to South Africa. And he'll very soon be stepping down as your president. And if you cannot find a job for Mr. Obama, please, just send him back to Africa. We could do with him. So in closing, as Mandela himself said in his very first address as president of our nation, overcoming poverty is not a task of charity. It is an act of justice. Like slavery and apartheid, poverty is not natural. It is man-made and can be overcome and eradicated by the actions of human beings. We all strive for a common purpose, that being to leave the world a better place. Thank you. Scarlet forever.